Pierre Poilievre is now leader of the Conservative Party of Canada, with overwhelming support of the party membership. Over 68% of the points awarded in the leadership process, with nearly 71% of the popular vote. Jean Charest, who assured us he was built to win, finished with 16% of the vote point and almost identical vote count as the third place finisher Leslie Lewis. Before the result were in, I sat down with Charest campaign manager Tasha Keridan and asked her some very point questions ranging from Charest work with the Chinese telecom Huawei to her new book that maps out her vision of the conservative movement going forward. So the elephant in the room, if Charest loses tonight, will he run as an MP in the next election?
Mr. Charest has been very clear that he wants to lead the party, and that is his goal. So that is what we are hoping to achieve tonight. That's the result, at which point then he would run to be an MP, obviously, for the party.
So he wants to stay in the Conservative Party?
He wants to support the Conservative Party. That's always been clear. He wants to support it as its leader. That's why he's been running in this race.
Charest has said that Poilievre's support of the Freedom Convoy should disqualify him from leadership. But it would seem that O'Toole's lack of support for freedom, so the convoy was the final nail in his coffin. Do you think the majority of the Conservative Party members support the Freedom Convoy?
Polling differs on that. I think there are some polls which show that a slight majority of supporters of the Conservative Party, as in members or voters, do support. I think numbers are like 54% for some questions, such as do you support the aims of the convoy? But do they support all the means of the convoy, what happened? No, it's not clear that a majority support everything that went on. And I think that's the question we have to ask ourselves too. It's not just what happened and how the party sees it, but we also look outside the party at potential voters. Those potential voters we know did not. A poll that came out recently showed that 70% actually think less of a politician who does support the convoy, which would imply that they do not support all of it themselves.
And there was recently a verbal confrontation with Chrystia Freeland and a resident of Alberta that the Liberals and some of the media are describing as violent. What was this violent? And should citizens yelling at politicians be against the law, as some are calling for?
I don't think that yelling at someone is against the law. We have the right to express ourselves, but the way it was done, the individual in question who basically came at her in a, I would say, aggressive manner, watching the video, attempted to yell in a very belligerent manner, deliberately, because there was someone with a camera who was recording the whole thing. I think that I wouldn't make that illegal, but if it crosses the line where a person is actually harassed, if there was contact, if a person feels also overly intimidated, if they are, psychologically harassed by this, then I think we have to ask ourselves, if it's not illegal though, is something that we as a society condone? I don't think we condone that behavior. I think politicians should have a certain amount of respect, just like anyone else doing their job, including you. Women have been yelled at. Reporters have been yelled at, female reporters, with very rude things. Those things aren't necessarily illegal, but they're certainly unpleasant and I think really undignified of a society like ours that respects the right of free speech, but also understands the right of respect for other people.
Mr. Charest, how much money did you get from Huawei when you were working for them, either directly or indirectly? Just the number, please. How much? Just the number.
Question about that, something about Charest that it had been really controversial about his involvement with Huawei. The company said that he worked on the 5G and not on the negotiation to bring back the two Michaels home. Who's telling the truth here? And why Mr. Charest keep refusing to say how much he received from the company?
I think that every citizen, every private citizen has the right to respect the privacy of contract. Privacy of contract law is incredibly important. Sometimes there are professional secrets within those contracts that any firm, whether it's a law firm like Mr. Charest or an accounting firm or any firm, has the right to respect. This isn't a court of law. He has broken absolutely no law here. He had a contract with them. And he's maintained since the beginning that the contract was indeed to help negotiate the release of the Michaels, to represent the company in its dealings with that. There has been, yes, a statement by Alakhan Velshi, who works for Huawei, that is slightly to the contrary of that. But Mr. Charest has also, on the record, stated that the wife of one of the two Michaels would back him up and say he actually did work with me. So you can believe who you wish. I believe Mr. Charest. He would never act against the interests of our country. He said that very clearly, and that is what he's maintained since the beginning on this.
And so enough about Charest. We will switch to your book, The Right Path. Lay out your vision of the roadmap to winning election, keeping the right united, and appealing to new Canadians who are so often social conservative. How do you, conservative, bring those people into the fold while adopting this new kind of socially progressive conservative we see from Charest or Patrick Brown?
The path that I say in The Right Path that we need to take is one of opportunity, because that is a word and a term and a concept, equality of opportunity, that is not only deeply conservative, but it resonates with all the groups that we need. Because we are missing urban voters, we are missing the new Canadians, and we're missing young people. And without those three bases, the party will not be a force in the coming elections. It will not be able to form government. So how to attract new Canadians? They want opportunity for their children. They want opportunity for themselves. They want to have a job. They want to be able to afford a good life in this country and have their kids do better than they will. And that is what conservatism is. It's about building people up. It is about giving them tools. It's not about big government, but it's about the right government that allows that freedom of entrepreneurship, support for family, and support for faith, which are the core principles of conservatism. So to me, that is a vision that I articulate in the book. That is the vision that many traditional conservatives have had for a very long time. It is not a populist vision, it is a conservative vision, and I think it's very appealing to those groups.
And so my last one will be one of the most frightening development on the horizon for the conservative movement is the proposed regulation of internet and expression through at least 3 bills pushed by the Liberals. How does the conservative movement fight this? Because it really is an extension of the woke culture that you are critical of it in your book.
Yeah, I think regulation of the internet has to be done very carefully. I think these bills do have overreach, absolutely. I think, however, there are some things on the internet I personally would like to change. One is anonymity. I think that, allowing people to be anonymous on the internet when I can't be anonymous if I have a bank account or any other type of interaction of that nature allows for people to then basically troll, abuse, harass, do all the things people complain about on the internet. So when you're saying, I think there'd be a lot less of the kind of speech that people dislike or say is objectionable if people had to identify themselves. So I think that, no, the bills go too far, but if there's a change I would make, it would be that.
And so we see a big problem rising from politics. A lot of people are angry. A lot of problem is raising from a lot of sphere of our life. What do you think is the biggest problem with the politics right now?
I think the biggest problem we have is not listening to each other and division. And it's exacerbated by online communities where if you make a lot of noise, then you get very extreme, you get a lot of followers, you get a lot of likes and views. People do that to appeal to that, to make a name for themselves in some cases. But what people, I think, forget is also that when you do that, you are polarizing and you are further dividing and cementing opinions. The other piece is disinformation, which is huge. And this is being done by actors outside of Canada, within Canada. So Russia, China, states that do not have our best interests at heart, manipulate people online by having trolling, anonymous accounts, this kind of thing. And people don't know how to separate fact from fiction. That to me is a big problem because in that people can't make informed decisions and they have opinions of others that may be falsely based.
So today is the final day. We will know who will lead the Conservative Party. everything will happen tonight. So if you want to see all the report that we will do, go to leadershipreport.ca, and in the same time, you can chip in generously so we can continue to show you the other side of the story of what is happening